Shalom, first and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, double honor to the and apostles of Great Millstone who are teaching this truth and sincerity, and shout out to Yakims out there in four quarters of the earth proclaim this truth. Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, Brakatum. So, out here, another month, and another week, prophesying the downfall of Babylon the Great, and World War III, right? You know, because it's not coming, it's already here. As pretty much so, you could say that they've already been captured in their ground invasion plans. Okay, they already caught them. They caught at least 50 from certain units in the Strait of Hormuz, so they already caught them. You know, so like everything else, so this planned ground operation, this surprise attack while pretending to negotiate peace, well, who you bullshitting? Oh, the retards that watch the mainstream media that believe that Donald Trump says that Iran wants to talk when Iran has not talked to Donald Trump, and they won't talk to Donald Trump because he pretty much can't be trusted, you know. And like everything else, though, they hit Iran's enemy, they hit Iran's infrastructure yesterday, their energy infrastructure. So you already know that Iran has already responded to that, as well as they've attacked all the universities. So now Iran has issued a warning for all universities out there in the Middle East that they're going to attack their universities. You see how this is tit for tat? And like everything else, so Russia's also delivered more S-500 systems to Iran. You know, so like everything else, so it's just a matter of time till Russia comes down. And well, once you blow up all the fuel, because that's what the plan is, right? You know, that little Texas plant catching fire, but they don't know what the cause of it really was. You know, that it was a malfunction that caused the, you know, Amoco, you know, oil refinery to all of a sudden catch fire. Yeah, right. They're destroying the oil, and they're destroying it on purpose, right? Because they want a reason for the global collapse. This is all an engineered collapse to usher in the mandates. They want to eventually mandate that everybody be implanted with a chip. And we ain't too far away from that. You see, they already got the crisis happening, and there's shortages, fuel shortages, as well as, you know, well, you already know about the fertilizer. Petrol oil is out in some countries like Alcatralia. You know, they pretty much been in prison for quite some time. Well, they're out of petroleum, you know, so that's your main fuel, you know. And like everything else, though, diesel's even higher than regular petrol fuel over here. So things are happening at a very quick rate. And others are thinking, because they believe the mainstream, that this war is going to be over in a couple weeks. That could take 3 to 4 weeks, according to Rubio. That, you know, but the Pentagon finally announces that that a ground incursion is ready. You know, that they are going to use ground forces to go in. So, like everything else, though, it's going to be a bloodbath. But you're also going to see a lot of captures. See, that's another thing, is that the IRGC is going to capture a lot of people too, as they already did with the secret mission that nobody's supposed to know about, you know, in the Strait of Hormuz, that they've already captured them. And not only that, I've seen some posts where they actually have the names of the soldiers that they had captured, you know, so not much of a surprise attack if the enemy already knows what you're doing, you know. But Esau, like everything else, though, has become so predictable that you can already tell that they're going to do something else. They already know that, you know, you can't believe anything Donald Trump says, and that's just it. You know, people are still, you know, there's those that are so full of Donald Trump because it's Trump shit. You know, as Gerald Celente says, it's nothing but Trump shit, you know, which goes beyond bullshit, you know, and then, well, yesterday you had the No Kings protest, which was, you know, not just nationwide, but worldwide, you know, and it was everywhere, you know. But like everything else, though, they want to minimize it. They want to give you the illusion that Trump still has strong support when he doesn't. Even the allies really want nothing to do with him because, well, they're about to run out of energy too, because they cut off the Russian fuel line. The Nord Stream pipeline was fucking destroyed, and then they told them not to rely on Russian energy. Well, now that Ukraine is attacking Russia's energy infrastructure, guess what? Europe is really going to be screwed on this one. And this is going to cause them to hate the whore and burn it with fire. But they weren't for this war with Iran to begin with, you know. And the UK, before they got on board, they said no at first, but of course the UK got on later, because like everything else, though, probably were told that they could make a lot of money, you know. You know how these back deals go, but you got to remember though that the main kingdoms, well, of course there's Rome, there's London, and Jerusalem being another, and of course DC being the other powers of the world, making up the secret, but it's not really a secret, but those are where the high places are. Empire of the city, I think they call it, which is, DC definitely is a part of that empire of the city, because DC ain't even a part of the United States. DC is part of a world power, and they speak as one, right? Speaking as a dragon. Have two horns like a lamb, but speak as a dragon, right? But like everything else, so people are distracted. People are still distracted to this day. They're thinking that, this thing's going to end in a few weeks. You've heard that said. And it's like, man, this ain't going to be over in a few weeks. See what happens. Well, like everything else, so they're not reporting the true numbers, about how many actually are casualties of this. But it'll start popping up. I mean, they'll get to a point that they can't gaslight anyone anymore. Even though there's been enough blackout on this. Still, though, Iran's not like Venezuela. And that's what they've said repeatedly, that we're not like Venezuela. You won't be able to just come in and, install a new puppet government like you did in Venezuela. You won't be able to penetrate that. Sure, they killed the Ayatollah, but they only made the people of Iran stronger. So, either way, though, we're in some times. And don't forget, in just a few days, starting Wednesday, right, we're going to be in the Passover. So like everything else, though, Adawan Ratazah, this is our last Passover before the return of Yahweh Shai. Because, hey, man, it couldn't get any more wicked. And, well, you already see that, AI is taking over all the so-called jobs that they're supposed to be. And you're seeing layoffs massively. Because, of course, the shortages. Now they're talking about, of course, when you order things, the shipping and handling. Well, now they're adding a fuel cost on top of the shipping and handling. Make it even more expensive just to buy and sell, right? And it's all about buying and selling and your purchasing power. And then wanting control over what you can buy or sell. So, you already know that what that's a recipe for, And we talk about that more than any other group, We sound like a broken record because we talk about it so much. The impending implants, which is the mark of the beast. We say it more than anybody else because we already know what the game plan for that is, And, of course, with food scarcity, resources being cut off, you cut off everybody's resource. You get them on a universal basic income, which they've done, because, of course, the jobs are being shut down. There's no work to be found in Egypt, right? Everybody is mourning because this is a place of mourning. Everything's going to shit, and it's going to shit really fast. But it'll overtake them, and eventually, you're going to see even more uproars of the people. This No King's protest is just the beginning of it. But like everything else, though, they're going to find out too late. It's going to be too late by then. It's already too late now. People that should have gotten right, our people, should have gotten right a long time ago. Now it's at a point that the Most High ain't listening to them. Because if you're in the military, you're going to be fighting Yahweh Shai himself when he returns. So therefore, you're already going to be an enemy of Yahweh Shai. Because he's going to take out Esau, Edom once and for all. So you're going over there, you're fighting this war, you ain't coming back. Apostle Tahar's already laid it out. You ain't coming back, And they're going to be in that desert wilderness, better known as Saudi Arabia, in that desert over there, which can be some of Iraq too. The whole desert wilderness is where they're going to be shipped to. And they're just going to be waiting because they'll never, ever be able to get into Iran. Every time that they're going to go into Iran, they're either going to be captured or killed. But nonetheless, though, they'll be on the side of the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Qatar, all that area. Well, good luck trying to get into Yemen because Yemen has also joined. So the Red Sea, that canal, that's about to be closed off too. So you're going to have closures on both sides. The oil just ain't going to be pumping anymore because there's nowhere to sell it to, right? The Suez Canal is also about to be cut off. See? So, like everything else, so you're seeing the downfall of an empire. And that's what we would be speaking about in the latter days, right? The song of the 144,000, which no one else could learn the song, say the 144,000. And we've been singing that song for quite some time, and it's echoing everywhere, You just ain't hyped. You ain't heard it yet because you couldn't learn the song because, you were fixated on everything else, though. So while we were out here, you you mocked at us. You said, oh, that ain't going to happen. Oh, they've been saying that for years. But here we are, man, Revelation chapter 14, verse 3, and this is the revelation of Yahushai and the song 144,000. Revelation chapter 14, verse 3, and they sung as it were a new song before the throne, and before the four beasts, and before the elders. And no man could learn that song, save the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth, being part of that elect. These are they which were not defiled with women, meaning philosophies, defiled with the world, pretty much, being defiled. For they are virgins, these are they that follow the Lamb wheresoever he goeth, who were redeemed among men, being the first fruits unto Yahweh and unto the Lamb. In other words, a special group, part of the elect, And we say hopeful elect because we don't know who we are, in the essence of we don't know until the time comes. But nonetheless, though, you got 144,000, you got the 1/3 as well. We pray we're a part of that. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of Yahweh. So, doesn't mean that they're sinless, just means that pretty much, though, there's no fault found in them because they were redeemed already. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, to every nation, kindred, and tongue, and people. Well, what's that talking about? That's talking about the World Wide Web, right? Because that's how the song was sung worldwide, and only certain people could learn that song. But we've been on the World Wide Web for quite some time. YouTube mostly, but also other avenues. But either way, this word has gotten out. And that's how the Most High gets down. And in their mouth was found no guile, and for they are without fault before the throne of Yahweh, saying with a loud voice, saying with a loud voice, fear Yahweh and give glory unto him, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him that made heaven, and the earth, and the sea, and the fountains of waters. Well, is that not what we're telling you, to get right with Yahweh, Yahushai? We have the names. And we're telling you that the Most High is, calling his elect back to him. Saying with a loud voice, fear Yahweh, give glory unto him, the hour of his judgment has come. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon has fallen, that great city. Well, that's America. Well, guess what? It's dead. That great city, it's dead. There's no work to be found in Egypt anymore. You're going to soon find that out. And most of all, though, its economy is going to be crashed. No work to be found, no money. You're not going to be able to buy or sell because they want a new world order. And pretty much this order out of chaos, they're going to mandate. They're going to mandate everyone to receive that mark. Because she made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And the third angel followed them with a loud voice, saying, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receiveth his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the implantable microchip, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High Yahweh, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. What's that talking about? World War III. Couldn't be caught in the midst of World War III. That destroying wind, that whirlwind. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb when Yahushai returns. It's not going to be a good day for them because many are going to receive grievous sores for also taking this implant just before the fire from heaven cometh, which is in the form of the nuclear missiles and the angels of the Most High and Yahushai himself, destroying this place, that destroying wind. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. They shall have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. which is the implantable micro C-hip. That's what's coming. It's around the corner. You know, we're past the great I told you so. You're just going to see it, you know, because in the end, it would come. You know, it would not tarry anymore. Wait for it, because it will surely come and not tarry. Look at how fast World War III has escalated. Now we're into the ground war, but a lot of things have befallen. First, Iran did not fall within the first few weeks of bombing. You know, they've been bombing schools, they've been bombing universities, they've been bombing civilian infrastructure. You know, just tormenting the people of Iran. Yet they still stood tall. They still walked tall and retaliated against all the bases there, and has resulted in the U.S. military seeking shelter into hotels because it's unsafe at those bases. And believe it or not, a spy plane was just hit yesterday too in the retaliatory attacks. So the retaliatory attacks have also taken out the Israeli state. And the IDF has announced that they're short on soldiers because, of course, they're fighting 3 wars. You know, they're stealing land from Syria and from Lebanon, and they can't fight. You know, they need more men. So what is the U.S. going to do? Send more men to die for the Israelis, because it's really about the Israeli state. The least of the flock, drawing them out into this valley at Jehoshaphat, which is the valley of Yahweh's judgment, because that's what it really means in the Hebrew, Yahweh Shaphat, meaning Yahweh's judgment. And that's right there in that valley. And you're looking at it on the map. You know, you should see that Sahara desert. You should see, you know, the desert wilderness. You should be able to see the Suez Canal, or you should see the Red Sea. You should see also the, River Euphrates. You should be able to see the Strait of Hormuz and all that area. Well, that's where they're all being gathered to, right? To fight for that great day of Yahweh Almighty. In a place in the Hebrew tongue called Armageddon, which means mountain of troops. Multitudes everywhere. You're not seeing it? You can't see that on the map because it's right there. Iran is right there where these multitudes are being gathered to fight. And like everything else, though, they've been losing. They've been losing this war on Iran. They've been losing the information war, definitely. You know, because pretty much, though, everything Trump says is fucking bullshit. You know, and people know that's fucking bullshit, and that they're not winning the war, that they're losing. You know, that's why they want to shut this internet down, because people call bullshit bullshit, and anybody speaking out against them, oh, heaven forbid you should speak out against the Israelis or doubt King Bibi, you know, because like everything else, though, they've been killing a bunch of journalists over there. They just shot a whole bunch of them, you know, reporters. They killed an RT reporter. They've been killing a lot of people for, reporting on the news. They didn't do the same in United Arab Emirates, who's been complicit. So, like everything else that stands out, all have been complicit in the creation of ISIS, of Al-Qaeda, and going along with the U.S. So they're all guilty. And Iran's been fighting this fight against Al-Qaeda and the U.S., you know, against these terrorist groups, you know, because the U.S. is the terror of the whole world. You know, when you hear the term terrorist, you know who it's talking about. The Edomites. The Edomites are the terrorists of the world. You know, they're the ones that created ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all these other groups, you know, and the same terrorists. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to say, they fucking passed the budget, right? They passed the budget, and so now the TSA agents can be paid as soon as tomorrow, maybe, you know, when they sent ISIS to the airports as well, you know, and they just being the pieces of shit that they've always been, right? You know, they steal land. This place is nothing but stolen land. They're getting recompensed. The Most High Yahweh is about to recompense them for everything that they have done, because they hurt the apple of his eye, which are the Israelites, you know, because we weren't supposed to taste this cup, but we have surely drunken of this cup, you see. And like everything else, though, Esau's about to render that recompense, and that recompense is about to be returned upon his head. So we're in the midst of that. We're seeing Yahweh get down, you know, and bring them into that valley, you know. So the Most High's judgment is upon Esau, Edom, and the world for that matter. You know, they're all being fought together. Everybody's going to be, you know, taking countries, is going to be taking territories, is going to be in the fight. You know, you're hearing wars and rumors of wars. You're hearing that, China's about to invade Taiwan. You've been hearing that for quite some time. Even though Taiwan's a part of China, well, they're getting down too over there in the east. This is a worldwide event. You know, because these shortages are going to be worldwide. And then they're going to usher in the MOTB. And that's going to be worldwide. Everybody's going to be mandated to receive that. And then the nuclear war begins. That's not too far from now. That's not too far-fetched. So we could be looking at another 9 to 12 months. But make no mistake about it, the mark of the beast is going to be mandated probably by the end of this year, going into next year. It will be mandated. They're going to push it really hard. As Apostle Tahar has already broken down, they're going to be pushing really hard between September through November, and eventually they're just going to mandate it. Because there ain't going to be anything left. All the industries are going to be shut down because of this. And that's what the whole plan was to shut down everything. 2020 was just a precursor as to what's happening now. That they needed a bigger crisis than COVID. You got one. But people ain't really calling it World War III, are they? They're just calling it the Iran War. They're kind of just giving you the illusion that the U.S. could just go in and topple Iran. Oh, and not to mention the rumor that he's going to be taking over Cuba. Rumor that he's going to take over Mexico. Rumor that he's going to take over Colombia. And don't forget Greenland. Oh, if they won't help me with this, we're going to take over Greenland as well. So, a lot of territory taken, a lot of threats from the king of Babylon himself. And so, like everything else, though, we're just watching in real time. You see, we report on everything. You know, we do the best we can to give you facts, but we have to report rumors because some rumors do come true. Well, the rumor had been going around for quite a while that once they got Syria, that they were going to go after Iran. A few months later, sure enough, they went after Iran. They hit Iran just right after Trump went into office. They bombed Iran last year. Well, rumor was going around again that they were going to attack Iran again. This time with they just wanted to get a good one. And so there they did. On February 28th this year, they did a surprise attack on Iran. But guess what? To their bigger surprise, Iran retaliated with immense retaliation. And they had to admit that Russia was providing intelligence to them. That they ain't just fighting Iran over there, that they're fighting Russia and its allies. See, it's a world war. It's the third woe that cometh quickly. They just won't admit to you that it's a third world war. You know, they only let you know a little bit. Because if everybody knew that, you know, they wouldn't be coming back to this ain't like Iraq or Venezuela or anything. That's not just a quick mission like it was. Iraq, you know, that Operation Desert Storm only lasted like 3 weeks. And then you got, Operation Iraqi Freedom. And it was that easy to go in. Saddam Hussein was toppled. They demolished Baghdad, took down his statues. And then Saddam Hussein was found hiding in a hole. They think that that's what's going to happen in Iran. They also think the same when they toppled Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. You know, that didn't last very long either. Benghazi, which got the ambassador killed. You know, you had all those things, but those were quick. Iran hasn't been quick. It hasn't been going very well at all. They're just not telling you that, but I think that, you know, there's still enough people watching the alternative media. And so it's just a matter of time till they shut that down. Of course, they're going to come after the prophets of doom, right? You know, they're going to come after us. You already know that they have AI to do shit, you know. So Esau knows that he's near the end. And like everything else, though, these robots, which even Melania Trump, you had seen one of the robots in D.C., you know, well, they already replaced everyone. They don't need you anymore. There's no work to be found for Egypt. So like everything else, though, you know, it's awaiting judgment. The impending judgment is coming. You know, for all partakers in Babylon and her sins, right? For her sins to reach unto heaven. You know, so here it is. Here's where it happens, into that valley of Jehoshaphat. You remember that movie, Edge of Tomorrow, with Tom Cruise? And it was in a repeat cycle over and over again. But they couldn't win the war, you know, because they were caught in a cluster. Now, eventually they figured it out in the movie and all that, but you saw how they were in an endless cycle. Everyone got killed every time that they tried to launch an operation. Everybody was killed. Well, that's what's happening here. They can't penetrate Iran. They're just pretty much going to be stuck there, awaiting orders, trying to come up with every strategy to try to invade Iran, and they're going to fail every time. And a lot of those soldiers that are on standby are just going to be there in the desert wilderness, as Apostle Tahar has already put it. But nonetheless, though, this is what's about to happen, you know. Ezekiel chapter 38, well, if that ain't surreal, well, you will soon see that it is. You know, that this is where it's going to be at. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws and bring thee forth all thine army, horses and horsemen, you know. That's talking about all the weapons of war, all the modern war machine, right? Horses and horsemen, all of them clothed all sorts of armor, a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Well, you're hearing now rumors about S-500 systems being in there. Tupolev 160s, T-160s being deployed to Iran, and also, Russia's Navy as well, not just in the Strait of Hormuz area, but also in of course, the Caspian Sea. That's just why the Israeli state recently bombed there. You see, everybody's going to be fighting, in this war. Persia, Ethiopia, Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his troops, the House of Tagarma, the North Quarters and all his troops, and many people with thee, because got to remember, Israeli state has also pretty much said that they were going to topple Turkey next, and that Erdogan would be the next Saddam Hussein. You've heard that from the, not sworn in yet, but the former prime minister of the Israeli state, not King Bibi, because rumor has it that King Bibi is dead and that all those videos are AI. And they seem to be AI generated, but nonetheless, though, that former prime minister said that they wanted to hit Turkey next, so that's how that's going to be drawn in. Not to mention, Turkey's been against this war on Palestine as well. Be thou prepared, and prepare thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be a guard unto them. That's talking about Russia, Gog and Magog. So, like everything else, though, well, they're going to come down. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands and many people with thee. So, they're going to be bringing in their militaries. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, it shall also come to pass at the same time, thoughts shall enter thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. So, what's that? Well, that they're going to go after the Israelis themselves. They're going to destroy the Zionist regime once and for all. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. So, like everything else, though, they're going to go after them, And also, not to mention, well, you've been hearing about, I do have to mention this because going into the Passover soon, that, they're planning a false flag to blame Iran. Have you heard about this? Oh, that they got a so-called Easter terrorist attack planned, right? That they're planning an Easter terrorist attack, the sleeper cells you've been hearing about. So they're going to try to pull off a false flag, possibly next weekend, on so-called Easter Sunday, which you already know how wicked Easter is. But nonetheless, so that's what they're going to try to do, to draw everybody in to get a little more support for this war against Iran, right? To say that Iran did it. If you hadn't seen them purposely blowing up civilian infrastructure by saying Iran did it, you've seen them already launch attacks against Turkey saying that Iran did it. You've seen them do the same in Saudi Arabia saying Iran did it. You've seen them do the same in Diego Garcia saying that Iran did it. That it was Iran when Iran said no, that it wasn't them. If it was us, you would surely know it. In other words, they don't hide behind anything. They don't do terror attacks. They do retaliatory attacks, right? They do retaliatory strikes. And a lot of times they even tell you what they're going to hit next. They give you a warning. When Donald Trump originally assassinated General Soleimani back in 2020, they gave a warning that they were going to attack that base. Of course, Donald Trump, he didn't care about it, and that base got attacked. Does he really care about all the bases that got attacked in the Gulf? No, he's going to send more to die because he said this war is a lot of fun. It's fun to bomb schools. It's fun to terrorize people, right? Because Donald Trump says it's all for fun. It's all fun and games. Well, others are going to go die for the Israeli state, going to die for King Bibi because he's a good man, according to Donald Trump, right? Hey, man, you're going to see uproars of the people very soon. Well, it tells you that in 2 Ezra chapter 16, that there shall be uproars of the people, especially in Babylon, right? Because that's the heart of Esau, Edom, right? So you're going to see uproars of the people, even more so, because there's no bigger shit talker than Donald Trump himself. I mean, this guy talks hellish shit. You never see more of a bullshit or a shit talker, right? 2 Ezra chapter 15, verse 14, we'll end on this. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. For the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another with swords in their hands. Everybody's going to be turning their guns against each other. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, which shall not regard their kings nor princes. The no kings protest just happened, right? It's going to get bigger than that, but that's just part of it. The course of their actions shall stand in their power. Man shall desire to go in the city and shall not be able, because of lockdowns. They're planning a lockdown very soon over these shortages, over they want to regulate everyone. You think that everybody's going to say, okay, no more traveling because they told me to travel, okay? No, they're not, man. They're going to be sedition everywhere, right? Because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, men shall be afraid. Houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Meaning that pretty much, though, they're all going to be stealing from each other, because that's what this devil is. He's a thief, he's a liar, he's a murderer. Man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword. Modern day sword, the gun, right? And spoil their goods because of lack of bread and for great tribulation. So, like everything else, though, we are only at the beginning of these things, the beginning of sorrows. You shall be delivered up. But like everything else, though, those that lose their life in this shall gain it later. So, that being said, though, that we're going to go through some shit before Yahushua returns. Some of us will die in our faith. Some of us will be brought before a trial. 10 days, but the Most High is still going to deliver us in the essence of, we might have died that, but it's still just a short sleep. It's a very short sleep, this death thing, very short sleep. Some of us will be beheaded for refusing the mark of the beast. That's just what's coming. We know the guillotines are there, and we know about the plan to round everyone up, and we know about ISIS everywhere. We know about the UN Army after next. We know about Jade Helm. We've been watching for quite some time. So it's not a surprise to us, just like it's not a surprise to Iran that they're planning this ground invasion while pretending to talk. You see, like everything else, though, we've been watching to make sure, our house don't get broken into. We know that Esau's nothing more than a thief and a liar. So like everything else, though, well, that's why we're warning you, and only the elect will listen. And that's what we're here to do, is to edify the elect. You 2/3, man, you're going to be caught up in it. So, like everything else, though, hopefully this has all been edifying. For that, I'm going to say, Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Wa Abab Abal. Brakathum to the hopeful elect. Shalom.